Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And one of the big storylines so far this season has been many pro players that were on starting teams at the start now finding themselves on the bench. Also, there's many other pro players that maybe are hanging on by a thread to their starting roster spots. Now with no CDL expansion potentially around the corner, as ZooMaa was saying a couple of days ago, will these players ever get their opportunity back in the starting team? And do they actually deserve it? Because ZooMaa goes on an incredible rant a couple of days ago, slamming a lot of these players and teams on a number of different angles from team culture, not wanting to watch VOD and being selfish in their gameplay. Crazy stuff we're going to dive into today. And tweet your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, this is kind of what Zero is getting at right here. Of course, he's sitting it kind of in the challenger scene over in the European side right now. Gonna start blacklisting people that chalk scrims for no good reason. Played 3 scrims out of 3 days. Embarrassing. There's been a lot of, well, similar discussion really from some of the pros. They said, well, so far this season saying, okay, people are still cancelling off scrims when they don't necessarily need to. That was a big discussion last season as well. Certainly, there's also the whole discussion around 8s, right? The fact that no pros seem to want to play 8s right now. There's a number of players who aren't finding themselves in these lobbies when they could be practicing and getting some decent practice to actually improve and get better at the game. Don't really seem to want to do that. We've got a lot of amateur players right now that really want to do this and they're, well, obviously picking things up. Of course, maybe Trey saying that the European challenger scene is not necessarily always like that, but there's so many players that are incredibly hungry to get in the league right now that when you are in the league and you get that solidified spot, there's always this kind of incentive potentially to kind of stick around and try and do what you can to stay in that position. Now, the top teams in the league don't necessarily have that mindset. They have the mindset to always keep trying to improve, always well, competing for championships, but you could certainly argue that the team that aren't quite competing for championships, then, well, they have really an incentive to actually just maintain their spot as opposed to actually looking incredibly good at the game. And that's what we saw Crimsix and co talking about last year, and now ZooMaa's calling out a number of pro teams for going down really a similar route and the pro players on those teams as well. This I thought was pretty cool from Jay. I know this was a thing you could do back in the day, actually. This was, I'm pretty sure this was a spot also on Black Ops 2, but I'm not sure it was quite this easy to exploit. There's the gap, as you can see under the statue right here, with well, the sniper you can abuse it. I'm pretty sure you can get a kill here with the Krig as well, so I thought I'd let you guys know. Honestly, so many spots that I forgot about from back in the day that now I'm being reminded of. So pretty cool stuff that you can do on stand if you find yourself in a pretty tricky spot and, well, trying to defend the B-bomb site or something like that. So we have seen really, as GG Breaking Boy point out right here, so far this season, well, really from this season to last season, the turnover of CDL players has been incredible. Rokkr have 0 of the 7 players that they've maintained since the start of last year. Legion are in a similar boat. Los Angeles Guerrillas are now also in a similar boat with Vivid being transferred out of their team. So all of those 3 squads have completely wiped their starting roster, and I would not be surprised if they continue down a similar route, right? This Los Angeles Guerrillas team right now, of Chino, of course, we've got Silly on the squad, Apathy and Assault. Is that going to be the team at the start of next season? I would be very doubtful indeed if that is the case. I think a lot of the players really in the league have kind of been, well, living on borrowed time to some degree, given there's so many other talented players out there in the amateur scene that I really think will get their opportunity coming up sooner rather than later. But will they get their opportunity because they're more talented than the pros in the league, or just because the pros in the league are really just trying to maintain their spot and actually not doing too much to continue on improving? As ZooMaa takes about right here, I mean, this is kind of funny just from last night, but also a couple of days ago on stream, that was one of the big question marks as to whether ZooMaa was kind of calling out Crimsix, and of course, as he says right here, I wasn't calling out anyone specifically. The rant isn't calling out individual people, it is to help teams focus on what is important to be a good team. So I'll share a couple of minutes of this for you guys if you haven't seen it already. It's honestly phenomenal stuff. I'll cut it out to kind of the key moments. But yeah, ZooMaa first of all calling out a lot of these teams for, in terms of, building a team culture that actually wants and tries to win. Because you see the best teams in the game, they're hopping on for practice, they're hopping on to watch VOD, they want to be the best, they're there for each other as kind of brothers in a sense, they're not there, just to win individually, they're there to actually, be the best team as a team, and that of course is what it takes to be the best team in the game. You see that all across the board. If one player's slacking off, you see a lot of the time, I think for the FaZe guys especially, the way they interact on social media certainly shows they're super close as individuals, and that's why, friendship is important, right? We talk about the friendship league. Obviously, having friends on a team is important, but business is business, and if you're, well, friends with the players on the team and actually you're not going super hard, then, well, that's going to come back to bite you at some point or another. Also talking about egos on these teams and how that's kind of holding them back. I wonder exactly which teams you think ZooMaa is implying right here. Pretty much every single team outside of the top 4, he seems to be indicating have some issues along these lines. And yeah, pretty phenomenal rant from Tommy ZooMaa Paparato.
People don't know how to have a good team culture. People don't understand what it's like to be a good teammate, to show up to practice every day, give everybody positive energy, get on board and do stuff together as a unit, and understand that in order to win and in order to be the best, you need more than just talent. You need more than just teamwork and all this other. You need a culture. You need family. You need brothers. You're playing for hundreds of thousands of dollars. You need that chemistry. You need more. FaZe, Toronto, New York, those guys got culture. They're family, they're brothers. They go into practice every day and they want each other to be the best. Then you got people like Dallas and all these other teams where egos are getting in the way, I think. I think egos are getting in the way. I think people are bickering. I think people don't want to admit to their mistakes. I think people are pointing fingers. At least you see OpTic going back to the drawing board and working together, making sure that they give everything that they got when they get on that stage. Some of these other teams, it just looks like people are trying to save their own ass. Instead of playing for the win, they're playing for themselves. They're selfish. They lose a map, they go back. They start talking behind each other's backs, carrying their team to championships. You're not Michael Jordan. You're not Michael Jordan. You're not. You're not Kobe Bryant. You're not Michael Jordan. You're not the best in the world. So stop acting like a asshole, or you're gonna get dropped. Look yourself in the mirror, bro. Film, I heard there's some pro players saying, I don't want to watch film. It's a waste of time. What? I heard this 2 days ago. I'm not going to say names, but go yourself. You don't deserve to be here. You don't deserve this shit.
Tom, a lot of those players are on teams that are not top teams, so that's a very...
some of them are dropped. Teams. Some of them are done. Some of them are gone, as they should be, because they don't have the right mindset, the mentality. That's what it comes down to. It's the mental. Grow up. Just grow up.
So I think it seems to a lot of people that compared to, let's just say, the Black Ops 3 OpTic dynasty that we saw back in the day with this ridiculous hardpoint record, for example, that I was kind of waiting for an opportune moment to point out right here. But again, this team, for example, back in the day, could pretty much, obviously they got on and practiced and they went hard and they tried to be the best, but they could pretty much destroy any team off pure talent. It was very difficult for any team to match up against them on Black Ops 3. The competition wasn't quite where it was today, and also they were incredibly talented and pretty much stacked their roster with the most ridiculous lineup and talent that we've ever seen in Call of Duty history. And obviously it worked out to pretty great effect, the OpTic dynasty over these couple of years. So I mean, look at this hardpoint record. You don't really see anything like this today. I guess New York are kind of mixing it up there. They're like 12-2 or something throughout the entirety of Stage 3, but I kind of doubt they'll get to 32-5, despite even how good they have looked. So some teams back in the day could pretty much just rock up and just gun you off skill. That is pretty much how the OpTic dynasty ran it for those couple of years. Nowadays, that is just no longer the case, right? And we see a number of different teams that either have to build a really good culture, a really strong culture of, well, not only improvement and being fantastic, but also like a nurturing young talent in a sense, because we see, Toronto Ultra, for example, they had a very interesting team early on last season. Then, of course, they make the changes. I mean, they made so many changes. They have like a 10-man roster last season. Finally, they've found themselves an actual squad that is very good indeed, and it's taken them a couple of seasons to do so. They've finally got into this position, and that comes from training hard. That comes from a significant will to win on their team. Other squads don't seem like they're in that position. I think there's a lot of teams right now, and I mean, you can kind of see maybe from the lineman cards right here that I'll point out. I mean, a few of these teams seems to me that they're living somewhat on borrowed time. They've probably not going to be the same team that we see next season, and well, a significant amount of these players may find themselves out of the league. Now, is that necessarily because the talent isn't quite there compared to amateur players? That's possible, but at the same time, are they necessarily doing all they could to be the best players they can be? ZooMaa's certainly implying that a number of these players are not. A lot of pro players not even willing to watch VOD and stuff like this, and if that is you, then well, unlucky lads, when you do lose your spot from the league, you'll have no one else to blame but yourself at that point. I mean, we see the Dallas Empire, of course, statistically not looking spectacular. I do wonder if ZooMaa was kind of talking about Dallas here and Crimsix and those kind of leadership styles that Crimsix has and maybe Slasher has and something like this, those players that have been around the scene for a number of years, but are they doing all it takes to actually build a culture that can win consistently, that isn't just around themselves as individuals? That is a question mark. I mean, at the end of the day, Crimsix is the winningest player in Call of Duty history, so I'm sure he knows a thing or two about how to build a winning mentality and a winning culture within a team. You look at a team like Florida as well, find themselves in a pretty interesting spot right now where, okay, that statistically they're not looking too bad, but they still can't seem to get the results that they want at these major tournaments, certainly. So questions there about whether they're doing all it takes to actually become the best team in the game and build a culture that can win over time. So many really interesting questions really that ZooMaa does raise, and I thought it was interesting really to look at the league in general. I mean, we can see right here, these are the rosters that ZooMaa's talking about that have this culture, right? I mean, you can kind of see it actually in their gameplay and the way they interact on social media and the content and stuff behind behind the scenes. New York certainly have it. Clayster certainly knows how to build something like that. Toronto are doing a great job with it over there. OpTic, of course, I mean, always a stonewall in this type of situation. And finally, OpTic actually showed the OpTic that, we thought we would see this entire season, right? Finally finding themselves as once again a contender. It does seem, at least on their performance, at the Major for Stage 3. And these pretty clear-cut right now are the top 4 teams in the game, and probably the 4 teams that do have the strongest culture in that sense. Of course, Los Angeles Thieves haven't necessarily got the chance to build it yet, but I think they will get there in due course. Other teams, it's a little bit questionable, I would say, at the present time. And that's really why you could argue a lot of these teams and players are struggling. And so many players in the league right now, which I imagine have, well, not been in the league for very long, and some players that will not be in the league for very long after this, I would imagine. Probably so many players that get wiped off these teams going into next season as well. And if that's due to ego, if that's due to players not wanting to practice as hard as they could because they think they're solidified their spots, if that's players playing for kills in matches rather than actually trying to win the game, as we saw Crimsix and Clayster, I'm pretty sure, talk about to some degree last year, the fact that, yes, some AR players are literally just playing for kills so they can maintain their spots because the players look at the line, because the management and such look at the line man player cards and this type of stuff. So some really interesting stuff. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Who do you think ZooMaa exactly was targeting with this rant? I thought it was, pretty phenomenal when all things considered. And well, I think teams have some things to consider, certainly about this, if they actually want to be competing for championships, because surely that is the goal at the end of the day in terms of the players that they do recruit. Thought this was pretty remarkable actually here on Garrison Hardpoint. The round 11 stats points out New York subliners. We talked about Hardpoint being a very difficult game mode to consistently be good at. This map, they are ridiculous at it. You see this rotation from P5 to P1 when they, lock down the 5th hill and then they just spawn trap the guys over there at the back. It's very difficult to deal with that. I mean, they just dominate on hill 1 and hill 5, and that is, well, certainly a recipe for success on this map. And then finally in Group 4, we will get a couple of these matches happening. So there's only 4 games so far that haven't happened though so far this year. FaZe versus Rokkr is one. We will get that in group play this time. Mutinies versus Ravens is another. We will get that in group play. Ultra versus Surge and Subliners versus Legion we still haven't had so far this season. Maybe in due course we will see indeed these games. But intrigued to take your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the usual rockers, and I know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.